Hello BookTube. For this Monday, I'm going to be doing the Stephen King book tag. This tag was created by Bookish Drummer, and I saw it originally on Bill Rutenberg's channel. And I'll leave links to both original videos in the show notes down below. Prompt number 1. Name your favorite Stephen King book, or what Stephen King book you want to start with. So, I have some history with Stephen King. Not very positive history. I've read The Gunslinger. It's a collection of short stories masquerading as a novel that opens the Dark Tower series. I've read Christine, which is a horror novel about a demonic car. I've read It, which is about a demon haunting a small Maine town. I've read The Stand, which is an epic fantasy about the end of the world. And I've read, I think, bits of Different Seasons, which is his novella collection in which two of the novellas, Rita Hayworth in The Shawshank Redemption and The Body, inspired or are the basis of two amazing movies, Shawshank Redemption and Stand By Me. Of what I've read of Stephen King's, my favorite is The Gunslinger. I thought the first story is really good, and quite a lot of the other stories are quite good as well from what I remember. It's been a while since I've read any of them, although I do have a small Stephen King collection. But Stephen King really has never done it for me. Prompt number 2. Nightmares and Dreamscapes. Name a book that gave you nightmares, kept you up late at night. For this prompt, I don't know the title. I don't know the author. I read this book ages ago. It's probably closer to 30 years than to 25 years. It's about a young girl whose family moves into an old church that's since been converted into a family home. But the church is attached, as a lot of old churches are, attached to a cemetery. So the cemetery and the church are haunted by the ghost of a young girl who I think ultimately tries to lure the main protagonist to her death in a nearby lake. And I read that novel when I was like 8, 10, somewhere around in there, and it scared the heebie-jeebies out of me. And I would say that one probably kept me up late at night, although I don't remember much except for that plot synopsis. Prompt number 3. Joyland. Name a book that made you happy. For this prompt, I'm going to go with Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. It's the first book in what is currently a fantasy duology. It's about, so the conceit of this world is that it's this world's filled with monsters, and various localities hire roving mercenary bands to clear out these monsters, and also to raid tombs and that sort of thing. It's basically like a role-playing game, like Dungeons and Dragons, only real. And so these mercenary bands have the reputations of rock stars. So it's kind of like that comparison. So there's usually 5 members in a mercenary band, sort of like that 5-man band sort of trope and stuff. And so there's a lot of rock references and that sort of thing in those stories. So basically the story itself is about an old mercenary band called Saga, who broke up decades before the start of the story. The daughter of the leader of the band of Saga has gone off to fight a monster horde in a far distant city. Her father, worried about her, decides to get the old band back together and go rescue her. So basically, the story is a hilarious romp of a sort of getting the band back together, going to rescue her, and really getting a whole slew of mercenaries who are increasingly more commercialized, more fake, to kind of like go and fight this horde. It's a hilarious joy of a novel to read. Although it's been a while since I've read it, but anyway. Prompt number 4. Misery. Name a book that made you sad. For this prompt, I'm going to go with A Mysterious Skin by Scott Heim. It's a novel about trauma, about abuse. It's basically a split narrative of 2 young men who were sexually abused by their Little League coach. One of the 2 young men becomes a hustler, a male prostitute, who clientele is usually older men, probably, if I remember correctly, I think they're somewhat reminiscent of that coach. While the other young man has sort of subsumed this trauma into the belief that he was abducted by aliens. And so he joins he becomes really obsessed with alien abduction stories and kind of gets into that community. And eventually, the one young man who sort of had believed that he was abducted by aliens begins to remember that something else had gone on, and so eventually he becomes friends with another young man who is also friends with the hustler, and sort of they eventually come together, and that ending is just absolutely heartrending. It is just heartbreaking. Prompt number 5, Cujo. Name your favorite animal companion. Well, my usual answer for this type of question would be Happy from Fairy Tale and Eden Zero. Happy is an anthropomorphic cat who has the ability to, in Fairy Tale form, wings. In Eden Zero, he turns into a pair of guns. But I want to go with a different animal companion. So, so let me see here. I don't know if I can think of it one really quickly off the top of my head. Oh, I'm a dingy. I'll go with Blofeld's cat. That Persian cat that's always with Ernst Stavro Blofeld in the early James Bond films. I'll go with that as my favorite animal companion, because obviously that would be like a pet and not like more of a friend, which Happy is. So we'll go with Blofeld's cat. Prompt number 6, Dr. Sleep. Name a book that bored you to death or made you fall asleep. Empire's of Ice by Diana S. Kim. This is a history about how the British and the French both used the drug trade, the opium trade, to benefit themselves, and also once their colonies began to be their colonized subjects began to become users themselves to try to stamp it out. The book was boring. It really boring. Prompt number 7. The Eyes of the Dragon. Name your favorite book series with dragons in it. Fairy Tale by Hiro Mashima. The main character, Natsu Dragneel, is the foster son of a dragon, Igneel. And there are a number of other major characters who were also the foster children of dragons. And the Dragon Slayers, as they're known, become incredibly important during the later arcs of the series, where one of the main villains is the Black Dragon of the Apocalypse, Acnologia, who is a wonderful bad guy. Just absolutely wonderful bad guy. Prompt number 8. 4 Past Midnight. Name a book you stayed up way too late trying to finish. So I'm going to go to my college years and to A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. I first read a Game of Thrones, I think in the summer before I started college, and was at the time blown away, although I've never really been able to reread it since. But I did pick up A Clash of Kings and A Storm of Swords during my first semesters at St. Edward's. And I remember reading Clash of Kings and A Storm of Swords, both, I think, well past my bedtime during those years. Although, again, I've never gone back to them, so. Anyway, and I remember really only being invested in, like, Daenerys and maybe Tyrion and I think Bran. Like, all the rest of the characters, I'm like, no. Prompt number 9. End of watch. Name your favorite last book in a series. Volume 27 of Full Metal Alchemist by Hiromu Arakawa. That is just one epic volume. I loved it, and I'm so looking forward to rereading it in September. I'm definitely going. I'm almost there. I've got after this month, I should have about, depending when I get another batch of books in, I should finish Full Metal Alchemist, like collecting it in either next month or in August, depending. But yeah. So Full Metal Alchemist is about two brothers, Edward and Alphonse Elric. They are alchemists who perform a forbidden ritual to try to bring their deceased mother back to life. The ritual fails, and they are both punished. They both have to pay a price for this. Edward loses a leg, and Alphonse loses his body. To save Alphonse, Edward sacrifices an arm to sort of transcribe Alphonse's soul onto a suit of armor. Edward then becomes a state alchemist, and he and his brother go in pursuit of the Philosopher's Stone, an alchemical artifact said to be able to perform transmutations without the need of equivalent exchange. And they plan to seek the Philosopher's Stone in order to restore their bodies. As the brothers journey throughout their home country of Amestris, they uncover a long-running conspiracy buried at the very deepest heart of the country and its government, and for which both brothers are important ingredients for the culmination of their plan. I love Fullmetal Alchemist. It is one of my favorite manga series of all time. Probably second only to Fairy Tail, I'd say. That isn't still going on. Number 10. The Outsider. Name your most unpopular opinion that makes you feel like an outsider. I'll go with something a bit more recent, and that is that I didn't like Lonesome Dove. So this month, June, is June on the Range, an inaugural BookTube event created by Michael K. Vaughan, in which participants read westerns. Over at Steve Donahue and Mayberry Book Club's channels, they're doing a read-along of Lonesome Dove, which is an epic western about a group of ex-Texas Rangers who have since become cattle ranchers, who, when an old colleague comes back running from the law with stories of the Montana Territory, it lights a fire in one of the partners to head north, to move to Montana, which is better cattle country than South Texas. So they move from near the border with Mexico, which is where Lonesome Dove is, to near the Canadian border in Montana. And so that epic trek and what comes after is the meat of Lonesome Dove. Everybody seems to be liking Lonesome Dove except for me. I did not like it at all. And of course it's because it sort of one of my literary berserk buttons gets pushed quite frequently. And so, yeah, I did not like Lonesome Dove. 11. Rage. Name a book you rage quit DNF'd. For this, I'm going to go with Amberlow by Lara Ilana Donnelly. This is it's not, I mean, it's fantasy, but there's no magic, which was already a mark against it. But it's basically the first book in a series that is inspired by the fall of the Weimar Republic and the sort of coming of the Nazi dictatorship in Germany. And it's about a intelligence agent who is at first assigned to infiltrate and take down a drug smuggling operation that's led by the MC of a cabaret, of which the spy is sort of, they're partners, they're in love with each other, which is pretty much why the case is never quite solved. So the agent is pulled from the case and is sent to deal with another matter in a neighboring province or state, to try to stop a burgeoning sort of right-wing movement from taking power. He's caught and is forced to become a double agent. And in order to do that, he has to pretend to be straight or some... It's like everybody in this book is stupid. It infuriated me. Because the main character, well, one of the three protagonists is stupid for getting caught. The Nazi movement is rather, equivalent movement is rather stupid because it's like, yeah, everybody already knows so why make him be straight when everybody already knows? It's stupid, and it infuriated me to such an extent that I rage quit. Number 12, Different seasons. Name your favorite seasonal book. I don't think I really have one. There isn't a book I read like once a year during a specific season. So I don't think I really have one, and I don't think I have a favorite book about or set in a specific season. So I'll go ahead and skip this one. 13. Finders Keepers. Name your most prized, rare, expensive book you own. Again, I don't think I specifically have a single book that absolutely, it's my most prized possession. I love all of them equally, I would say. 14. Later, name a book you keep putting off and telling yourself that you'll get to later. And Their Children After Them by Nicholas Matthew. I've had that book for quite a few years and I still haven't gotten around to it, but there are quite a few books I have that I've been putting off that I need to get to. I can also say Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson, which is a cyberpunk that I've been wanting to get to for 5+ years, and hopefully I will be getting to that relatively soon. 15. Desperation. Name a new release that you're desperate to get your hands on. Eden Zero Volume 17, which I should be getting sometime next month. I've got it pre-ordered, and also the first omnibus edition of Tokyo Revengers, which I'm also really looking forward to. But there's a whole slew of books that are coming out that I want. And finally, 16. Tag your fellow constant readers. So if you would like to do this tag, whether you enjoy Stephen King's work or not, consider yourselves tagged, and I will see you tomorrow with another tag video, and probably throughout the week with either tag videos or discussion videos or something. So anyway, BookTube, until I see you tomorrow, thank you, have a great afternoon, and stay safe.